Hello everybody, my name is Dr. Christophe Fougère. Welcome to Mastering Money. This is session number 3, the gift economy, and lecture number 10, Gift and Reciprocity, the Anthropologists and New Economists' Vision. So let's just talk first about reciprocity as a behavioral constant. So we know humans are social animals. We are all connected to each other and to our environment. And on the other hand, the degree to which we are aware of this connection may vary from one individual to another. We know we all exchange energy, material forms of energy, and immaterial forms of energy. Immaterial forms of energy are like emotional energies, like emotional bonds among mothers and children, spouses, boss and employees, and emotional investments in social relationships, and material energies through, for example, commerce. Reciprocity means to give back to others because we ourselves have received from others. It can be understood as an exchange and a feedback mechanism which is necessary for the good functioning of the biosphere and all living systems. Biologists in particular have discovered a mechanism that they call reciprocal altruism among animals, and this phenomenon is actually strengthened through repeated interactions. So in economics, what are the origins of reciprocity? First, let's start with going way back in philosophy. In his work Leviathan, the philosopher Thomas Hobbes speaks of the fact that when a man renounces the right to possess something, it is because he expects to recover the same thing in a reciprocal exchange. So what are the roots of this concept in economics? So we go back to Adam Smith in The Wealth of Nations 1776. And this is the famous passage that everybody knows some parts of, where it says, "It is not from the benevolence of the butcher, the brewer, or the baker that we expect our dinner, but from their regard to their own interest. We address ourselves not to their humanity, but to their self-love, and never talk to them of our own necessities, but of their advantage." And in the preceding paragraph of the same page, we have a little surprise. "But man has almost constant occasion for the help of his brethren, and it is in vain for him to expect it from their benevolence only. He will be more likely to prevail if he can interest their self-love in his favor, and shew them that it is for their own advantage to do for him what he requires of them. Whoever offers to another a bargain of any kind proposes to do this: 'Give me that which I want, and you shall have this which you want,' is the meaning of every such offer. And it is in this manner that we obtain from one another the far greater part of those good offices which we stand in need of." So right there is the notion of exchange, the notion of reciprocity through exchange. Now, if we also look at recent findings in neurology, we have, for example, the discovery of what we call mirror neurons, which seem to indicate that we are wired for empathy. And in this case, when we observe emotions in others, these emotions seem to be mirrored in our brain. And this is exactly what empathy means: feeling what another is feeling. We have some research done by Tanya Singer from the Planck Institute, and this appeared in journal Science in 2004, where they show that when pain is observed, the same area of the brain is triggered than if actual pain was felt. So when we look at this evidence that we may be geared towards empathy and reciprocity, let's see what the New Economist view is related to this topic. So we have this article by Fair and Gechter in 2000, and this is a seminal paper where they argue that building the foundations of economics on the hypothesis of reciprocity may also produce some really nice predictions that are outside of the common economic models that are founded on methodological individualism, which means the satisfaction of selfish utility. They distinguish between two types of reciprocity: positive reciprocity, which is a demonstration of generosity which is often followed by a gift in return, and negative reciprocity, in which a negative action or cunning behavior is rewarded or will attract a form of revenge. Now, one of the foundational work in the study of the gift is this book by Maurice Mauss, French ethnologist, in 1923, called The Gift. And he studies tribes in Polynesia, Melanesia, and in the American Northwest, and he asks the questions: what is the rule of law or intrinsic motivation in these primitive societies, which makes the person who gets a gift feel obligated to return an equivalent value to the person who gave them that gift? What is that force behind all of it? What he finds is, so the greater question is, why does reciprocity exist between humans? And what he finds is this concept from the Maori culture called the how. And this concept is a little bit elusive, doesn't really have a definite meaning, but we can probably sum it up as what the essential life energy that is contained in the exchange items and which creates the bonds that connect us through the exchange of those gifts. So now let's look at maybe a form of reciprocity which is not really positive, but which is kind of what Mauss gets into in his studies. So he finds three distinct obligations that underpin what he calls gift exchanges: the obligation to give, the obligation to give back, and the obligation to receive. And those are examples that he gives in Polynesia of the potlatch and in Melanesia of kula. The term potlatch means giving presents, and in the tradition of the Chinook Indians, which dates back at least from the 16th century, what we find is that the tribal chiefs are exchanging gift as a way of outdoing each other's generosity. So it's a little bit of a signal of greatness, ego that is communicated through these exchanges, on top of probably some intrinsic generosity. In China, we have this concept of guanqi, which means network. And in business circles, the people who participate in the guanqi are required to return favors when they have obtained a favor from one of the other members. So we could actually characterize that as a sort of a bondage contract or a forced type of reciprocity. So we're going to contrast maybe two notions: the gift economy versus the receiving economy. And it's really interesting to see what of the two concepts should be at the origin of the link or the connection or the exchange between people. Should it be a gift? Should it be a receiving of something? And how that might impact I will say the energy and the sense of the relationship. So let's just study a scenario. Let's imagine you're a guest in a house. This is a very good friend of yours, and you admire a painting that your friend has just put on the floor, just by the wall. He just took it down. The friend just took down the painting because it doesn't really match the new living room furniture. And it's clear from what the friend's saying that they want to get rid of the painting. So case number one, you feel very at ease, you know your friend very well, you're very close, and you speak openly and you gently ask your friend if you could have the painting. That's case number one. Case number two, your friend, seeing how interested you seem to be with this painting, offers to give it to you. So the question I have for you is, can you list the range of feelings and thoughts that each of these cases bring up in you, and which of these two cases seem kind of more natural to you and more conducive of some positive relationship or feel satisfying to you? So I'm going to also contrast the idea of the true gift versus the fake gift. Two French philosophers, Jacques Derrida and Alain Testard, criticize Mauss. They say giving actually is to renounce to any right of property or any right associated with parting with the item, in particular the right to demand reciprocity. On the other hand, the concept of exchange is clearly defined as something that entails a sort of reciprocity that is expected. Each party stands to ask something in return. Hence, it's an unfortunate word grouping that Mauss has been using when he characterizes gift as gift exchange, because exchanging, as we're saying, exchanging requires some sort of counterpart, whereas the gift is only a gift because of letting go of the right to claim anything in return. So the fake or poison gift I will characterize as saying that you give with an expectation of getting something back, and it is coming from the part of the brain that is calculating and opportunistic, and attached to this transaction there is a sense of obligation, moral debt, and even a sense of bondage. There may be some pressure exercised that can lead to extreme behaviors like threatening. There could be an hypocrisy in a transaction which leads to corruption. And the bottom line, what it is really is an exchange, a commercial type of exchange, market type of exchange, disguised as a gift. On the other hand, the true gift is giving with no expectation of getting something in return, which is a demonstration of pure generosity coming from the heart, which is an authentic action, and it promotes freedom and establishes a rather, I'm not going to say too deep of a connection, but a rather important connection with the other person. Other ways that gift can be happening is through what I'm going to call gratitude transmission. And we have examples of benefactors that are giving back to their alma mater, meaning the university or the institution that they get the degree from, and that help them soar later and become very successful in their career. So in 2001, we have this example of an anonymous donor giving $360 million to Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in Troy, New York. And that gift was the highest ever at the time given to an educational institution by an individual. And what was interesting about that gift is typically gifts to foundation come with restrictions on the use of the money. And in this case, there was no strings attached. which meant that the gift was a true gift. And what is the logic of transmitting gratitude? Well, what we have here is we have one generation passing the torch to another. So one generation having received help from the previous generation, now it is incumbent on them to say, I'm going to do the same to the next generation. So it is an intergenerational unconditional gift, and it manifests under the form usually of giving back to the community that has raised you or that helped you when you were young. The idea is that I was given a chance to succeed by someone or by an institution. Now I will return that favor and help somebody else. This is also called pay it forward, and it is an expression for describing the beneficiary of a good deed repaying it to others instead of to the original benefactor. These are things that were very important in the lives of people like Benjamin Franklin, for example. So what are examples of gifts and reciprocal gifts? Well, we have examples in France of the system called SEL, Système d'échange local, local exchange system. Since 1995, we have about 500 of them in France. And what you have here is a sort of system of barter for essential services like daycare, small house repairs, computer repairs, cooking classes. And you have a sort of a exchange rates system. And the byproduct of this is that it helps people overcome the feeling of loneliness, especially in urban areas when they're involved in these types of systems. You have another type of gift and reciprocal gift system, which is garden sharing, where people may have a garden at home, and they are essentially bartering products that surplus products that they've cultivated and grown in their garden. You also have the possibility of, in certain towns, of open spaces that are viable for growing plants, vegetables, and that are taken by a community of people, and the plots are shared, and people are rotating in terms of cultivating and tilling the soil and doing the work, and it creates a sense of community, and then people may share in the end the products of their agriculture amongst themselves in urban areas, which is a very great way of creating connections with people. So now is an example, a counterexample of what I'm going to call the anti-gift and the closed heart economy. And what we have here is, it's really something you can't make up. It's a situation that happened in 2014 in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where a 90-year-old man is arrested for doing what he has done for years, which is not a criminal really activity once you know what it is. What he had done for years was to feed the homeless people in the city of Fort Lauderdale. But at the time, in 2014, a new law is passed that forbids people to openly help homeless in the streets. And this 90-year-old person is sentenced to a 2 months jail time and to a heavy fee for doing this activity. The two pastors that are helping him and that have created with him the association Love Thy Neighbor are also sentenced to a jail time. So another another form of giving is what I'm going to call honors payment or honors giving. And what you have is you have businesses that are organized in this very simple way. You have a client that shows up on the premises and literally consumes or takes the service or the goods that are on display. Then the client leaves a payment for the services in a lockbox that is dedicated to that purpose. The key factor is that there is really no one there, manager or worker, that is there to tend to the shop or monitor what the client is doing. So this is really relying on the trust between the businessman and the client. And so mostly in one direction, that the businessman trusts that the client's going to do the right thing. You have examples of this cafe in South Korea and Seoul, where there are actually no waiters, and the client actually helps himself or herself to a cup of coffee, computes how much he or she owes to the cafe in terms of what the cost of the what he consumed was, and then puts the money in the urn that is to that effect, and then of course washes the dishes on their way out. You have another example of an open bookstore in China, which I give the link here. So from your standpoint, is this a realistic business model? And that's really a key question. How can this type of business model be expanded, possibly, if this is even wishable, to a broader sector of the economy? Can you come up with case scenarios in which clients would actually be willing to pay more than the perceived market value of the item? Okay, those are good questions. So thank you for your attention.